The grand chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the low murmur of dozens of alien voices, each species represented by their most distinguished diplomats. At the center of the crystalline amphitheater, a holographic display showed the third planet of a yellow star system, rotating slowly as data streams flickered across its surface. Ambassador Krell, the Dominion, adjusted his forearms against the podium, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial lighting. His mandibles clicked with barely contained amusement as he gestured toward the display. "Honored council members," Krell began, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had conquered 17 star systems. "We gather today to discuss the latest petition for membership from the species calling themselves humans." A ripple of chittering laughter echoed through the chamber. The Vorthan representative, a tall being with translucent skin and multiple eyes, leaned forward in his floating seat. "They still use chemical propulsion for their spacecraft," he observed, his voice dripping with condescension. "Their fastest vessels would take decades to reach even their nearest stellar neighbor." "Indeed," Krell continued, pulling up tactical displays of Earth's military capabilities. "Their weapons are primitive projectile systems and crude nuclear devices. Their defensive installations consist of ground-based missile platforms and orbital satellites that any first-tier civilization could disable within hours." Fleet Commander Vex of the Hegemony, a reptilian being whose scales shifted color with his emotions, stood from his position. "My analysts have reviewed their combat doctrine," he announced, his scales flickering from green to deep purple with amusement. "They still fight wars on the surface of their own planet, using ground vehicles and atmospheric aircraft. They have no void-capable battle fleets, no energy shields, no quantum weaponry." The chamber erupted in more laughter. Representative Nala of the Federation, whose gaseous form swirled within a containment suit, spoke through her translation device. "Perhaps we should offer them protectorate status," she suggested mockingly. "They could serve as manual laborers for our mining operations." High Counselor Tyron, an ancient being whose species had ruled the galaxy for millennia, raised one gnarled hand for silence. "The humans have submitted detailed reports of their defensive capabilities," he said, though his tone suggested he found the exercise pointless. "They claim their planet is protected by what they call nuclear deterrence and something called mutually assured destruction." This drew the loudest laughter yet. Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly. "They threaten to destroy their own planet, rather, than surrender it," he explained to those who hadn't read the human submission. "They call this a defensive strategy." "Fascinating," Commander Vex mused, his scales now a bright yellow of hilarity. "They would rather commit planetary suicide than accept conquest. How delightfully primitive." The Council spent another hour reviewing humanity's pathetic military technology, their basic space program, and their fractured political systems. By unanimous vote, they rejected Earth's membership application and instead approved invasion plans. 3 fleets would be dispatched to claim the mineral-rich world and its abundant water resources. 6 months later, the first Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Orcs commanded 200 ships, enough firepower to reduce the planet's surface to molten slag. His sensors detected the crude human satellites and their laughably weak defensive positions. "Open communications," Orcs ordered. "Let's offer them the chance to surrender before we demonstrate the futility of resistance." The response came from a space station orbiting the third planet. A human male appeared on screen, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. "This is Admiral Blake of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said calmly. "You are entering sovereign territory. Turn back now." Corks's mandibles clicked with amusement. "I am Admiral Corks of the Dominion. You will surrender your planet, or face annihilation. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us." The human's expression didn't change. "You should know that we've been tracking your fleet since it entered our system," Blake replied. We've had 6 months to prepare. Prepare what? Quarks laughed. Your chemical rockets and nuclear warheads? Your orbital platforms? We've analyzed everything you possess. Nothing in your arsenal can penetrate our shields. Perhaps, Blake said quietly, but you've made one critical error in your assessment. Before Quarks could respond, his sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Multiple contacts emerging from the asteroid belt and the outer planets. The tactical display lit up with red warnings as hundreds of objects appeared seemingly from nowhere. They moved with impossible speed and precision, far beyond anything the Council had observed in their analysis of human technology. What is this? Quarks demanded. Blake's image smiled coldly. You assessed our defensive capabilities based on what we were willing to show you, he explained. You never considered what we kept hidden. The human ships were unlike anything in the Council's databases. They moved without visible propulsion, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. Energy readings suggested power sources that shouldn't have been possible for such a young civilization. Impossible, Quarks breathed. Our intelligence indicated. You barely achieved interplanetary flight. Our public space program, Blake corrected. The one we wanted you to see. You never bothered to look deeper, to consider that a species paranoid enough to develop mutually assured destruction might have other projects running in parallel. The first wave of human ships struck with weapons that tore through Dominion. Shields like paper. Quarks watched in horror as his flagship's barriers, designed to withstand the most advanced Council weaponry, simply vanished under the assault of some unknown energy. How? He gasped as his ship shuddered under impact. We've been preparing for this day since we first detected your surveillance probes 40 years ago, Blake replied. We knew eventually someone would come for our resources. We made sure we'd be ready. Within hours, the Dominion fleet was scattered, those ships that survived limping back toward Council space with tailies of impossible human technology. Fates befell the Hegemony and Federation fleets when they arrived weeks later. The reports reaching the Council chamber painted a picture that defied all logic. Humans had somehow developed technology decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. Weapons that ignored established physics. Ships that moved faster than light without using hyperspace lanes. But the most disturbing revelation came from intelligence. Our EPORTS filed after the battles. The humans hadn't just defeated the invasion fleets. They had studied them, learned from them, reverse-engineered Council technology in real time during combat. High Counselor Tiarn sat in his chamber, reading report after report of human capabilities that had been completely hidden from their initial assessment. Underground facilities that stretched for miles beneath Earth's surface, space installations disguised as asteroids, weapon systems that had been mistaken for civilian infrastructure. A communication request appeared on his personal console. The sender was identified as Admiral Blake. Counselor Tiarn, the human said when the connection opened. I believe you have something to discuss with us. Tren's ancient voice trembled slightly. What do you want? Blake's expression was pleasant, almost friendly. The same thing we wanted 6 months ago, he replied. A seat at the Council table. Except now, instead of asking nicely, we're making it clear that isolation isn't an option anymore. And if we refuse, then you'll discover that our defensive capabilities were just the beginning, Blake said quietly. We've had 40 years to prepare for war with a galactic civilization. We're quite good at it by now. The transmission ended, leaving Tiarn alone, with the weight of his civilization's miscalculation. The Council had laughed at Earth's defenses, dismissing them as primitive and weak. They had never considered that any species capable of threatening their own extinction might be capable of much more. 3 days later, The Galactic Council issued its first formal invitation for Earth to join as a full member with voting rights. The humans accepted graciously, and Ambassador Blake took his seat in the chamber where, just months before, his species had been dismissed as irrelevant. The Council never laughed at human capabilities again.